In this video, we will create some Kibana rules and try to trigger them to create alerts. If you're not sure what Kibana rules are, they are basically Elasticsearch queries or Kibana queries that you can run periodically based on a schedule that you define. If these queries return any results, then we consider the rule active and you'll get an alert in Kibana. There are many different types of rules. For example, some rules are completely freeform for you to define. Other rules are specific to security information and event management. There are some rules that are also specific to observability. There are probably many other types that I have yet to discover. In this video, we will focus on creating the rules and triggering the alerts. In the next episode, we will use Logstash to send those alerts to our email. Before we begin, I want to say that if you find these videos helpful, you can support us by pressing like on our videos and subscribing to our channel. If you run into issues following this video, you can leave a comment below. If your issue is more complex, then it is better to send us an email through our website. That way we can exchange emails, exchange logs for troubleshooting, or even set up a virtual meeting to resolve the issues together. So to begin, let me go over to our Elastic Stack, and I'm going to scroll to the stack management. And under here, alerts, insights, and rules, this is where you can basically define some Kibana rules. If you're using, we're using Docker to spin up our Elastic Stack, and I've already configured something in kibana.yaml file to enable this page. If you're using let's say your own self-hosted or on-premise, or just you've started up Elastic and Kibana directly against your host machine, and you were manually editing your kibana.yaml file, you may discover that maybe this rules page is not enabled for you. To enable it, you need to add one more property to your kibana.yaml file. And sometimes you might even get a notice on this page explaining what that property is. Let me try to show it to you. I'm going to go over to my Elasticsearch server, and let's go into the elk ES in here, and let's go into CD ES, I think, and in this config. Okay, so this kibana.yaml file would also exist on, let's say, a natively hosted Elastic Stack. And normally it would be found in a directory like this, kibana.yaml. So normally that's where you would find that file. And what you may need to do is add a new property to it, which I believe is, let me just try to grab it from a dictionary somewhere. One moment, please. All right, this is the field that you would need. So you would need to add something like this. Okay, or you can just do a shorter hand notation like this, and just make sure it's at least 32 characters long. So 0192, just type anything you want such that it is at least meets this requirement here. Then you would just restart Kibana, and it should, once you restart Kibana, this page should be enabled and you should be able to see create your first rule. Okay, so that's for people who are hosting Elasticsearch and Kibana natively on their operating system. In any case, so for us, let's continue. We have the ability to create rules. And one thing I want to mention is, yes, you can create rules through this section here, but you should also be aware that there are other sections within the Kibana websites that let you create rules. I would say that this stack management rules is the global area. Whatever other types of rules you create elsewhere in Kibana, they will most likely appear aggregated here. So one place for you to look at them all. But if you go to, let's say, to security, let's see, where is that? It's over here, security rules. If you create a rule through detection engine or detection rules, security information and event management, and you create one of these rules, so these are SIEM rules that Elasticsearch offers you out of the box, which you can install. If you install, let's say, I think one of the ones we're going to do later is host file. Or let's say like this, search. Okay, let's say you want an alert every time someone modifies host file. Let's install this. Now, just because it's been installed, you can actually see it here. Whoops. You can see it here, and you can also see it under the original page that I went to over here. Okay, so this, the rules under security rules, detection rules, SIEM, I think of these as a subset of this global area of rules. If I create another rule in here, which we'll do shortly, like if I create a rule with this button, it will appear here, but not appear here. Okay, so think of the security rules, detection rules as a subset of the overall rules. These rules are just detection rules, SIEM. There's about 1,000, in fact, you can see it here. There's about 1,000 rules that Elasticsearch comes out of the box with, which you can start to use if you want to use them. Other rules, you'll have to define them yourselves here. One more thing to point out is there's actually another subset of rules under observability. So if I click here and let's say, where's observability? Oh, here it is. If I open up the alerts area, again, the rules that you create through here by clicking on manage rules here, it will become, if you click here, if you create rules through here, this is a subset of the global rules here. What you create here will not appear here, but what you create here will appear here. Okay, so these two tabs are subsets of this. They're just a smaller selection of rules relevant to observability. This here is a smaller, or let me go back over here. These rules here are a smaller subsection of rules of these rules here. Okay, so it got me confused the first few times I was working with all these rules, so I just wanted to point that out. Now, coming back to the beginning, let's create a regular global rule first. So I think one good basic demonstration could be, let's create an alert anytime there are out-of-date WordPress plugins. And how I would go about doing that is, here, let me close some of these so that I don't get confused. So first thing I would need to do is, as mentioned at the beginning, we need to define a query of sorts to check whether there are even out-of-date plugin results. So we need to test that query first. Once we have a query, then we can assign that query to a rule. And how I like to make that query is I might go to the Discover tab here. And let's say we look at the data view that we made for WordPress, which could be, let's say, WP plugins. And it's been a while since I recorded a video, so let me look back 15 hours. Okay, so what we can do is, let's take a look at the contents of this record. I'm going to open up a new notepad. Let me just paste it. Let me drag my notes over to this window. All right, so I took this record, I pasted it into Notepad like this. And we take a look at a result like this. Let's see what would be interesting. I think I had a field called, outdated plugin count. So this is basically the number of outdated plugins that was detected during this run or this scan. So what I can do is, if outdated plugin count is greater than 0, we should get an email alert. So let's say outdated plugin count, if that is greater than 0. Let's see how many things. All right, so we do get results back. So I'm going to take this query, and then we'll come back over to this rule section over here, and let's make a rule called outdated plugins. And I am going to scroll down. Now, there are many different rule types. I find that when starting off, at least for me, I've always found it very useful to just create my own query and not have to, I don't really use too many of these other options at this point in time. I just like to make my own query. And in here, I'm going to use a KQL query, which is this query format that we've used over here. And what I want to do is, just like this tab here, we're looking through the WP plugins data view. I will also choose the WP plugins data view over here. This is the query that we want. And if we get more than, let's say, 0 records, so 1 or more, within the last 15 minutes, you could try to change it to scan every minute and also in the check interval every minute. But I find that sometimes the Elasticsearch query may be a bit slow. So by choosing 15 minutes, it gives it a little bit more time to look through some records and load and do what it needs to do. So so that's my query. If there's more than one outdated plugin count within this view in the past 15 minutes, and if there, I'll explain what this argument is later, but if this query is true, then we consider this rule as true, and that will trigger an alert or create an alert within Kibana. We can test this out by just pressing test query. Okay, so nothing in the last 15 minutes, which makes sense because the last time I recorded video related to WordPress might have been yesterday or 2 days ago. So let's actually try to make this true. To make this true, what I'm going to do is, let me go to one of my WordPress servers. So this terminal window here, and I should also open up the website. So let me open up web1.evermite.net. All right, so I am into the admin area for Web1. I just want to double check that there are indeed out-of-date plugins. Right, this one's already out of date. So what I can do is, let's force the plugin to send another scan of information to Elasticsearch. So I'm going to go to the var www web1 WP content plugins Evermite, and in here there's a .last ping file, and this is throttling attempts to submit information to Elasticsearch. That throttle, I believe, is happening, let's take a look, once every 12 hours. So I'm going to delete this file. And in a moment, I believe, let's go over to our uptime monitors. Let's see, Web1, the last time this was scanned was 3:37. So in another 4 minutes, this uptime will actually, we're checking every minute. So in another minute, this URL will be hit again. And when that happens, I'm pretty sure another record will be loaded into here. We can even double check now. 1538. Okay, so maybe a record has come in. Let's test the query now. Okay, there we go. So now you can see we have a new record in here. So this rule would be considered true. So this seems to work. And other things we need to fill out. Right. Role visibility is basically if someone were to log into Kibana, who can have access to viewing these rules. And given we're logged in as the super user, we already have each one of these rules, so it doesn't really matter which one we pick. So I'll just pick this one for now. And if you want to know where these rules are set, they're basically under, let me just go to stack management again. And under the user's role, security roles, when you're creating new roles, one of the roles here, this component here, are roles specific to Kibana. And you can see under observability, these are the permissions. So as the Elastic user, you can already see that these are grayed out because, or I think, yeah, basically I already have all of these permissions, which is why over here, it doesn't really matter which one I pick. Okay, so you can determine how you want to set permissions later on. So at this point, if I press save, I think our rule should be created and it'll appear here. This section down here, it's you can basically create actions. So if the rule is true and an alert gets created, then what do you want to do, right? Do you want to log that alert to an index? Do you want to log it to a server log? And if you have a paid version of Elasticsearch, you also have these other actions. Do you want that alert sent to D3 Security, to your email, to your Jira, to Slack? And there's probably other things you can, other integrations you can do as well. Okay. A little bit later, I will show how you can put that alert to an index, and then we will use Logstash to read this index and forward us the alert to our email. Right? But we'll do that later. Let's just make sure this rule works first. All right, so I'm going to press save, give it a moment, and there we go. All right, and I could try to just run this right now. And let's see if, okay, there we go. You can see that this alert is now active because within the last 15 minutes, there was a submission from this plugin to Elasticsearch that shows at least one out-of-date plugin. So later on, I will run a bash script that will import the other 9 or 10 rules that I showed in my original definition or in my original demonstration. I don't want to create them one by one through here because the process is the same. So what I'll do instead is once I've imported all 10 rules into Elasticsearch and into Kibana, I'll just show you what the queries were that I put into each rule because the rest of the process is the same. Coming back to this stack management rules page, let's move on to the next type of rule. Let's make a rule from the detection engine SIEM module. Now at the beginning of this video, I already made it this one, but I don't really like to do it this way because you notice that there's this option here called edit rule, and I can't seem to edit it at all. I can't change its schedule. I can't change or modify the query in any way. And this is because when you install the detection engine rule straight from the SIEM module, so straight from, let's go to here. And let's go over here. So if you install it straight from here, they won't really let you edit this rule. Even here, I can't seem to edit it. Actually, it says you can edit it, but you can't actually because you see it's all grayed out. So what I'd like to do is, what works for me is if I delete this rule first, and what I'll do is I'll make a duplicate. Like I'm going to duplicate the original rule, then Kibana will actually let me edit the duplicate. So if I come back over here, and let's say I come here, and let's go here, I should have the ability to add that rule again. And I should be able to duplicate it. Or maybe, okay, so maybe I have to install it first. And then under here, maybe I can duplicate it from here. Bulk actions, duplicate. Yes, duplicate. And now I will delete this rule. Where's the delete button? Delete. All right, now I think I should be able to edit this rule. Yes, now these tabs are available to me. So why might I want to edit this rule? Well, we can take a look at the query definition here. Either we can look at it through here, or you can review the query definition through over here as well. Just by clicking on this, you can see the query definition here. So what this rule is saying is that for index patterns, these are the prerequisites to for this rule to actually work. I had to talk with some Elasticsearch people, and I asked them, what does this index pattern mean? Does it mean I need this, or this, or this, or this? Or does it mean I need this index, and this index, and this index, and this index? And from what I was told, most of the time, not all the time, most of the time, it just means this or this or this or this. Some people pointed out that there are times where you may need a combination of these index patterns in order for a particular rule to be fully functional. So I feel like that's not the most fulfilling answer for me, but I guess that means is every time I install a rule, I'll just have to test it out for myself to be sure whether I've met, whether it behaves the way I expect. And if it's not behaving the way I expect, maybe it's not just one of these indices. Okay. But I know for this rule, from my experience, it's really just one of these indices will work. And we've already got Audit Beat installed on both of our WordPress servers. So I think this rule should work. All right, so given that we've met that prerequisite, let me just quickly look at something quickly. Okay, yes, so we've met that prerequisite, and this is the query that's actually going to be executed. So it's almost like the equivalent of the query that we would construct in this Discover tab, except here they've already made it for us. And we could choose to edit this. So if we go to edit rule settings, under here, the rule is still available to us here. So we can always enhance it further over here. Now I realize that there's some of these rules should have, is it this schedule? Right, you can even edit these schedules. So we're saying that this rule should run every 5 minutes, but if the rule doesn't fire exactly on the 5th minute, we can still look back a little bit further back, like 4 minutes back, just to see if we can capture anything that's missed. I don't really need to modify anything here. Usually it's really just for your own, let's say, adding meta information to this rule to make it easier for you to find or to explain to your other colleagues what this rule is about. So it's really these two tabs that we generally modify. For now, I'll leave them as is. It's just my way of letting you know that that's how you would go about editing a rule like this. As for the actions, it's just like the other basic rule type that we made a few minutes ago. You can configure it to log entries to an index, or if you have a paid version of Elasticsearch, you have all these other options. I think for us, we're just fine with logging our alerts to an index later, and we will use Logstash to forward those alerts over to our email. So I'm just going to press save without really making any other changes. And this rule should now be installed. So you see it here with the suffix duplicate. And over here, if I hit refresh, it should be here as well. However, we should enable it. It's disabled by default. Enable. Okay. And let's actually try to test out this rule. If I click in here for a moment, you see that no alerts were executed. But if I go to, let's say, one of my other servers, let's say this first WordPress server, and if we edit the host file, like this, and let's say we just add another line, just like that. I think in a moment, this should trigger. And if I don't want to wait that long, let's just run every 5 minutes. Let's say I don't actually want to wait another 5 minutes. Let's actually just run this rule right now. And I'll hit refresh. And there you go. You can see that this alert has been executed, where this rule has executed and it actually satisfied the criteria of host file having been modified. Now, I forgot to show you in the other rule that what you can do is, if you want more details around this, just click on this link. It basically takes you to this page here, and you can probably look at some of the details in here. You likewise can do it for the other rule that I forgot to mention, which is over here. If you click on View in App, it takes you to the Discover tab, and it should show you the results, but I'm not sure why I'm not seeing any results here. It potentially could be that my timestamp time zones might be a mismatch during the configuration, but at the very least, you can always manually change these time selectors or time filters to the appropriate range provided based on whatever time zones you're working with. Everything should be UTC, but maybe I misconfigured my time zones in a way. Okay, so that's basically how you can use any of the rules, any of these Elasticsearch SIEM rules that are out of the box. Either you just install it and use it as is, in which case you won't be able to edit it, or you duplicate it and you make some further edits to it so that it's specific to your infrastructure. So that's basically all there is for setting up alerts. In the next episode, we'll try to get these alerts into our email by using Logstash.